In this movie, we're going to talk about how to move and rename files. And like we just saw with deleting files, there's two ways that we can do it. The first is that we can just go into the regular operating system and do all of our moving and renaming, and then come back and tell Git about those changes and tell it to stage those changes. The second is that we can do it from Git and let Git handle working in the operating system for us, just like it did with delete. So let's look at both of these. First, let's look at renaming. So let's say we've got firstfile.txt. Let's go in here and let's just change it to primaryfile.txt. Okay, so we've given it a rename and we did it from the file system. Let's switch back over to Git and ask Git, what's the status now? Notice that it didn't tell us that it was a renamed file. It tells us that it was a file that was deleted, and then there's a new file that's untracked. That's how it sees what happened. It sees the fact that the file that it was expecting to find is not there, and now I have a new file there instead. Let's try adding those changes to the staging index. Git add primary file, that's the new one, and git remove firstfile.txt. So now it has both of those changes in its staging index. Git status. But now it says, I noticed that now they're renamed. Okay, so once it gets to the staging index, it actually compares the data between the two and says, oh, these are pretty close. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Some changes could have taken place at the same time. I think the threshold is about 50%. As long as the data is about 50% the same between the two of them, it says, oh, okay, this is the same file. So you've renamed it from firstfile.txt to primaryfile.txt. And now, of course, we know how we could commit that change just using a regular commit. Let's take a look at how we can have Git do the process for us. So if we do another rename, let's do Git, and a rename and a move are the same thing in Git. It's similar to the way it works in Unix. So if we want to rename the second file as secondary file, let's git move secondfile.txt to secondary underscore file.txt. So we're moving secondfile.txt to secondaryfile.txt, which is essentially the same thing as a rename. We tell Git to do it though. If we come over here and we look in the operating system, you see that it took care of changing it for us there. And if we do git status, you'll notice that it went ahead and added it to the staging index for us, just like delete did. It said, all right, I'm going to change it in the file system and add it to the staging index all in one step. So I think the lesson from both deleting and the moving and renaming is that it's easier to have Git handle it, because Git will take care of adding it to the staging index for you right away. Now, if you're doing lots and lots of changes and moving things around in the file system, it may be better for you to go there first and come back and deal with Git later. But if you really are just changing one thing, a lot of times it's better just to do it here and let Git go ahead and add it to the staging index for you. Now, I said moving was the same process. We don't have anywhere that we can actually move things to yet. Let's create a new folder here, and let's call this first directory. And let's move our third file into that directory. So let's do git move, and we're going to do third file.txt, and we're going to move it into first directory third file.txt. Now we could rename it at the same time because, like I said, move and rename are basically the same thing. And now it's moved it there, git status, and you can see that it tells us that it's been renamed, but the rename was actually moving it to this new location. So like I said, move and rename are synonymous. Most of the time it's better to do your moving and renaming from inside of Git instead of from the file system. Let's go ahead last of all and let's commit those, commit, and let's say reorganized file structure by moving files. There we are, and you can see that it lists off those renames there. A git status shows us that our working directory is clean, and our working directory is now the same state as our repository.